News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update. An 80-year-old transient man has been arrested and charged with allegedly groping several women at a Logan grocery store. Mark Chadwick Porter was booked into the Cache County Jail on Wednesday, where he is being held temporarily without bail. According to a probable cause statement, Logan City police officers responded to the grocery store Tuesday night after two women reported being allegedly assaulted by an elderly man. The mother and teenage daughter explained how they were shopping when the suspect approached them and asked if he could give them a hug. The man said he was lonely and missed his family. The alleged victims told police they agreed to allow the man to hug them. The man kept talking to the women and asked for additional hugs. This time the women said the suspect grabbed and squeezed their breasts. He then showed them a metal rod and told them he used it to determine what God wanted him to do, according to the arrest affidavit. During these contacts, the women were able to take a photograph of the suspect, capturing his attire minus his face. They reported the incidents to store employees who called police. When officers arrived, the suspect was gone. Wednesday afternoon, store employees called police again when the man returned. He was arrested in the parking lot, getting into his vehicle. A man was taken to the hospital in critical condition after driving his flatbed truck hauling fuel tanks into a construction site and colliding with an asphalt paver on I-80. Sergeant Cameron Roden with the Utah Highway Patrol said the crash was reported at around 6:45 p.m. on westbound I-80 near 2300 East, located on the south side of the Salt Lake Country Club near Sugar House Park. According to Roden, the driver drove between two barriers at the construction site and was later found down a nearby embankment. The driver was transported to a nearby hospital in serious condition. Authorities do not believe impairment played a factor. The crash remained under investigation. The call was initially reported as a hazmat incident due to the driver hauling fuel tanks, but after further investigation, workers confirmed that no fuel was spilled during the collision. Lanes were reduced to one lane in the area as crews cleared the site. All roads have since reopened. And Utah's non-farm payroll employment for November increased an estimated 2.6% across the past 12 months, with the state's economy adding a cumulative 43,100 jobs since November 2021. Utah's current job count stands at 1,688,600. November's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate inched up 0.1 of a percentage point to 2.2%. The November national unemployment rate is unchanged at 3.7%. Approximately 38,200 Utahns are unemployed. Mark Nold, chief economist at the Department of Workforce Services, said the Utah economy is settling into some subtle moderation in its economic variables. Job growth is not as rapid as it was for most of the year, and the unemployment rate, though still very low, is starting to inch upward. 7 of 10 major private sector industry groups posted net year-over-year job gains led by construction, education and health services, trade, transportation, utilities, and leisure and hospitality. Other services recorded no employment change, and two sectors had employment contractions, including professional business services and financial activities. KBNU News Time is 4:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Breaking news and stimulating talk. KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Hi, I'm Celeste Edmonds, Executive Director of the Christmas Box House. When I was a foster child, Christmas felt like something that was for everyone but me. Christmas should be for all children. The Christmas Box is working with the Utah community to provide Christmas for nearly 2,800 at-risk children. To learn how you can help today, please contact us at thechristmasbox.org or Google us. Thank you and happy holidays.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People, Friday, December 16th. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter in the studio as well. Andy Morgan joining us in a bit. We'll be talking The Fabelmans, Avatar 2, The Way of Water, 12 years later for a sequel on that one. A lot to cover on the movie show today. That's coming up at 5 o'clock. Right now, here in the studio, we have a very special guest joining us to talk about what has been a big week in county news in a lot of different ways. Joining us here in the studio, Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield. If you've been following the news, Mr. Bradfield, after the council meeting, or during the council meeting on Tuesday, Jess, you gave a presentation as requested by the council. You left. You came back 20 minutes later and said, I'm going to be resigning this office in 90 days, March sometime, right? Is that roughly the time frame? For those wondering, I spoke with Shelley Giddings, the chair of the Cache GOP, and she said, well, first off, Jess, she thanked you for giving them time to organize a special election in a nice fashion where they have some time. She said they won't really be meeting to talk about a timeline on that until January with the holidays. So no news on that front. Jess is here to talk to us today about that, but also a new audit out, one of my favorite things, and one of the things that I hope doesn't go away with you leaving the office, the return of audits, in the first audits in decades here in Cache County, and they've been so revealing. This is, audits speak to transparency, they speak to better government, they reveal flaws in the system that can be, something along the lines of efficiency. They can also save taxpayers a lot of money. I'm a huge fan. State Auditor John Dougal is one of my personal heroes. He's turned that office into a juggernaut of good government. And he's made some enemies doing it, unfortunately, but it's been great to see. I'm happy to see this be a part of Cache County's politics as well, and I do hope it continues. Before we get to the audit, this is amazing. This is a Cache County asset audit that we're going to be talking about today. Public Works, vegetation, roads, and more. Audit conducted by the County Clerk's office as part of that clerk and auditor role. And but before we get to that, do you want to speak at all to your decision? I know you've answered this question a million times. Charlie has a great story up at CacheValleyDaily.com. But this, you gave your presentation to the council. They had requested a presentation on your decision to go part-time. You say, it can work in the office. You've shown that it can work for several weeks now already, and it would save taxpayers a lot of money. Yeah. And then sometime between that presentation and the end of the council meeting, you decided it's time to go. Well, not immediately, but to offer your 90-day resignation notice.
Yeah, a 90-day resignation notice is not common.
Sure.
But I felt like it was needed to make the transition for my office. My office staff had been the ones who had said, please stay, everything's working.
Sure.
We had been doing it for a couple of weeks at that point, the part-time. And the office staff, they just said, please don't go. This is perfectly legal. It's perfectly acceptable.
That had been established, right?
Yeah.
This is legal within county code.
There's no reason for you to go. But the problem is that the attacks were just so intense. I've got to say, it really stung that the attacks came from within. And now here's something I have to say, because it seems that, if you say something, then the people, other people want to come back and rebut. I don't care. Like, at this point, my resignation is in for 90 days. There's no need to cause any issues, right?
Sure.
It was just so surprising to me to try and declare something that's legal, that our own county code allowed, that the state allowed, and then just to be hammered and attacked so relentlessly from within your own county government. It just took me by surprise, and maybe it shouldn't have, but the last 2 years have just been brutal. There's a lot of lies that go around when you're in government.
Sure.
And
egos, right?
What was that?
Egos.
Oh, man. Talk about egos.
I've always said for a lot of folks, it takes an ego to run in the first place, but then sometimes they clash and cause problems.
Yeah, the power struggle this past year has been, I would call it intense. I'd call it, and I don't want this to be any kind of article, I don't want it to be in the articles of, Jess is saying the power struggle was intense. Really, I'm just here to tell the truth. It was intense, and I think everyone involved would say it was intense.
I think we've seen that, not just our newsroom, but speaking as a county resident, in the news that's come out, we've seen this has been different the last several months. Well, the last year has been different than I remember.
And one of the difficult things about being clerk auditor is if the county council decides to go after the executive, or the executive decides to go after the council, and I have my own opinions on this, and people can maybe guess them, but I'm quasi council, I'm quasi executive, because
Sure.
my auditing powers, I have to report both to the executive and to the council when it comes to auditing, because I can only do performance audits and those types of things through those powers. But then when it comes to auditing, I'm independent, but then my budget is set by the council, and I'm the clerk of the council and the elections clerk of the council, and tax administration goes to the council. And so here I am, I'm quasi, it's kind of this, you're split before you even get to start, because you have so many masters that you're serving. And so if you are the county auditor, county clerk auditor in my case, and you get caught in between that power struggle, you just get yanked around by both. I wouldn't say David Zook has never yanked me around, but you get caught in that struggle naturally. Sure. Because you report to both of them. And
that's unique to your office.
Yeah, too. And I'm not trying to say anybody, anybody particular. I'm not trying to say that the council is bad, because there are some amazing people on the council.
I appreciated your comments during the council meeting. You said, to the council, you said you've been very difficult to work with, but I'm sure you would say the same. and I appreciated that. It was, recognizing that, there are. I've said throughout all of this, that hinge, whatever is existent between the executive and the council. It's hard to look at either side of any of this and hold anyone. I've been a critic of the council myself here on the show for years, because I felt they'd become very lethargic. We weren't doing audits. We were 10 years behind on getting some things online through the county government that other counties had done 10 years ago, which I've actually done you a disservice. When you come in, I get so excited about the audits that you've been doing, or that your office has been doing under your direction, and we haven't talked about some of that. You also, in a very short period of time, although it probably seems long to you, short period of time in office, you've definitely brought that office up to speed when it comes to online access to many different things, and I think you deserve credit for that. Long overdue. I
came in with, so all of my experience has been in the private sector prior to becoming the clerk auditor and winning in a special election. I thought, people would be well received in government to updates, because everyone makes those promises. It's like, it's almost made me question, do people really intend do anything when they make these promises.
Sure. Other than campaign.
Exactly. Because I made those promises and then I stuck to them. And there was a lot of pushback, a lot more pushback than I would have thought, because I was so open and transparent about what I wanted to accomplish. And so, we brought everything up into the digital age. All the processes of the clerk auditor are now online. Some of the tax administration, just because of the demographic that we serve indigent and those types of things. They don't always have computers, so it's difficult to make some of those online, and it defeats the whole purpose. But everything else, marriage, business, grama, open records requests, audits, everything else is online. Elections, you can do anything you want, and we'll help you get there. And we did it all in less than 2 years. And I think that's my staff. I just want to say I had the best staff. As you'll remember, a lot of the staff left right away because they didn't, for one reason or the other, they didn't see that vision.
Sure.
And
that's also not uncommon.
No.
Right?
In fact, if you were to say, well, what happened when clerk auditors across the state, or clerks or auditors, what happens when the clerk leaves? Typically, you pull your chief deputy with you somewhere, and then a lot of the staff will also leave because they just, they've worked for so long and they're used to that environment, or they think, this next person's crazy. It's just, that's the way it goes in sometimes in these situations.
We saw the same thing in Weber County, Davis County, this year, Salt Lake and Utah County. But it's also not unique to the clerk's office. You see it with new treasurers, but after that period.
But could I just say one thing, Jay?
Sure.
It's not always bad.
Yeah.
People always are
new
like,
blood, right?
Yeah. You get a new perspective in these offices, and people are always, it's funny because people are always like, oh, I want government to change, but I don't want anything in it or people in it to change. And
especially if they're my friends.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, good luck with that. That's my...
It's not how it works.
That's my... If you really believe in transformational processes, you can't do that. And every business identifies, when you go into a situation, what's the transformation? Here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Here's what we need to do. And not everyone in any situation is going to catch that vision, and that's just the way it goes.
And like you said, you did lay this out. I think, to your credit, you've achieved everything you campaigned on to win the election outright the first time, and then again the same second go around.
Can I say the thing that I'm most proud of in that time? For the past 8 months, we just built an entire elections building dedicated to running and hosting ballot processing. It's one of the best in the entire state.
And you did it on the cheap, too. That's what is cool.
We did
repurposing an existing county building.
Yeah, we didn't increase our budget in order to get there. We really repurposed a lot of our budget. Our budget over the past few years has actually gone down. And so in 2020, we had a spike. In 2021, we had to update the office. It cost, it cost about the same as 2020 to actually go through and update the office and build a new tax administration office. Not build it, but revamp it so that it was user friendly and put everything online. But then my promise to the people was, look, if you do this, you're going to have to pay some upfront costs, but you're over the long period, your costs are going to go down. And I've done all the analysis. We have a cheaper per capita election process than pretty much anyone around anyone in our up to or down to category. We have exactly the amount of workers on the average of up to and down to compared to other counties of our size.
Sure.
We have a budget that's essentially average for up to and down to in the counties of our size. I tried to right size everything. My goal in this was, hey, we haven't had our office really hasn't changed since 1984. I found the org chart, and I said we need to set this up for the next 10 years. And so everything I've done has set up the office for the next 10 years. There's obviously always things you have to update, but I just want to say that ballot center took nearly a year, and I've just I just feel like when I'm gone, that ballot center will remain, and hopefully people will see, how much I cared about the county and all the work that we put in to get there. And
you did get some praise. I know for a lot of folks following this in the media, it sometimes seems like different departments at war with each other, the council at war with this group or that group, and it's not that black and white. You did get, even during this most recent council meeting, before you tendered your resignation 90 days from now, that you did have two council members, Carl Ward and Gordon Zillis, praised all of this, saying that the clerk's office had seen great improvement and had done all of it on the cheap. And so I would assume you feel you're leaving the office, when you leave in March, you're leaving the office well prepared for whoever takes the role next.
Yeah, my goal was to create a plug-and-play office. I came into kind of a different situation. Things had been the same for quite a while, and I don't fault anyone. In fact, I appreciate all that Jill did before I left. You can only do so much with what you're given, and she did an amazing job. And so then to come in and be able to build on that, I just wanted to make it so that whoever took the office next was a plug and play. You just step into it and you're on your way. And that's one of the reasons I had a great staff. I was trained. I'd been spending, that's why I had originally wanted to go part-time, is I could, because I was trained in all of those functions and I built all those functions and I knew how everything worked. And for me, it was just very efficient to be able to log into a system, answer something, and then step away. So for me, it was really, I just wanted to do the right thing for the people and give that money back. But you know what? I have to say, I have had so much of a burden taken from me after I said, you know what, it just for my family it's no longer something that I think is in the best interest of my family. And
any chance that you, this is a really unfair question right now, but three new council members incoming, 3 outgoing, Gordon Zillis, Gina Worthen, and Paul Borup, leaving the council. You have through the elections, you've got Sandy and Mark and
Catherine.
That's right, Catherine Buse coming in. Any chance that in the next 90 days, change of heart, or is this something that you feel is best for your personal future, one way or another?
If the council came to me and said, Jess, we appreciate you, we want to retain you, I think that's kind of a way different situation than what had happened and how it all played out. I'm public service is in my blood. Like I for whatever reason, I just want to do this, and that's why I said during that meeting, I'll take $1. I don't care about the money. I don't have to care about the money. I'll take $1. Lee Iacocca, when he did that, it was always something that stood out to me. Somebody can go in and do that. Now, he was in the private sector and then made millions later. That doesn't happen in the government.
Sure. not at the county level.
You take your $1 and then you take another $1 the next year. But I just have to say, if the council came to me and said, Jess, we want to retain you, I would do it. But I'm not going to push for that. I don't think that. Right now, I'm just very content, very happy, and I just, for the next 90 days, I'm just going to work closely with the council and make sure that they're happy, that my staff is happy, and things are going well. That's my only goal.
And as this transition plays out, again, I spoke earlier this week with the Cache GOP chair. Sometime in January, early January, she said they'd begin meeting to talk about a timeline for a special election. And she said they'd be working with you as well on, once that plays out, transition, bringing a new clerk in maybe for some advanced training and things like that after a special election. So hopefully a smooth transition here. Jess Bradfield, Cache County Clerk and Auditor, announced earlier this week during after a presentation to the County Council during a council meeting that he would be resigning in 90 days, roughly mid-March, when he would leave the office. But that is just one thing we have to talk about today. We spent a lot of time on it, so we'll move on now because I'm excited about this. On the other side, a new audit. So this is audit number what?
This is number 7.
Number 7.
So in 2 years, we've been able to do 7 audits, and I am going to do, this is my promise, I'm going to do more. So we'll talk about this one, and then before I leave office, I promise we'll get even more done.
I'm excited about that. These have been amazing to see. And for listeners, I'd recommend you download them all from the very first we talked about here on the show regarding the recorder's office and some funding issues that were being created by funding systems that were leaving the recorder's office unable in some cases to actually do the job the recorder's office is there to do. That's a helpful thing to learn, right? The audit exposed that. This audit we'll talk about today regards Cache County assets. This was an asset audit of public works, vegetation, and roads. And some teasers for the other side, findings such as software buttons meant for approving a transfer of an asset that did nothing, leading to a lot of pending approvals building up over years, to processes that had 4, 5, 6, 7 no longer necessary steps, but were still part of the required process, taking up a lot of county workers' time and department head time. That's exactly what an audit is good for exposing. We'll get to the details of this Cache County asset audit conducted by the Cache County Clerk and Auditor's Office. Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield, our guest here in the studio, and we'll be back right after this.
We've reached the Sheriff's Department Civil Processing Division. Please hold while your call is transferred to Sergeant David Chapman. Deputy record.
This is Sheriff Chad Jensen. Fraudulent phone calls similar to this one have been received by many citizens in Cache County. The most common scams are asking for payment over the phone because of a lawsuit, civil bench warrant, or to post bail for a family member who has supposedly been arrested. They ask for payment in form of prepaid cards, gift cards, or money transfers, and if you do not pay, they threaten to arrest you. The Sheriff's Office does not take payment or ask for personal information over the phone. These types of scams often use internet phone numbers which are nearly impossible to track. If you receive a phone call of this nature, do not give out any personal information and hang up. Be cautious about the information you give out over the phone to make sure you are not the next victim of a scam.
St. Joseph's Indian School is much more than a school for Native American children.
It's like a family. Classes are fun here. I am learning about my culture.
Since 1927, St. Joseph's Indian School has provided children the education, health care, and support they need to succeed. To help give our kids brighter futures, learn more at stjo.org today.
Vehicle accidents are stressful enough. You don't need someone showing up at the scene trying to pressure you into letting them tow away your vehicle. Call your roadside assistance provider or insurance company for towing company suggestions, or consult with police on the scene. And always have the price and terms in writing before you let them hook it up. If you suspect fraud, call us at 1-800-TEL-NICB or visit www.nicb.org. A public service message from the National Insurance Crime Bureau.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Apologies to the Cache County Clerk and Auditor. I wasn't watching the clock and I've messed up the schedule, so I'll just let everyone know again what you're listening to here, and then we'll go right to the news and then get to this audit. Cache County asset audit conducted by the Clerk and Auditor's Office. Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield here in the studio. This audit revealed exactly what an audit should reveal. No corruption or scandalous revelations, but processes with unnecessary steps that had never been updated, software with commit buttons for asset transfers from department to department that did nothing, meaning the transfers never happened, and also 5
different systems with the same information.
Honestly, that is amazing. I mean, this is what an audit's for, because this stuff builds up over time. These audits don't say this person failed to do their job and should be fired. They say over time, all these processes have built up, and no one ever has the time or is tasked with going back and reviewing them to say, are we doing this the smartest way or the best way? And that's what an audit's for. And that's exactly what the audit reveals. And we'll break it down bit by bit with Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield here in the studio. First, though, a look at the local headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:34. The news brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. A judge on Thursday ordered a Salt Lake City police officer to stand trial for aggravated assault for sicking his canine on a suspect who had his hands up. The officer, Nicholas Pierce, faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted. He entered a not guilty plea at a hearing Thursday with Judge William Kendall. Kendall scheduled a trial to begin June 5th. Pierce's attorneys declined to comment to Fox 13 after the hearing. Salt Lake City's police union issued a statement that said the executive board of the Salt Lake Police Association is disappointed and angry by the judge's decision to bind this case over for trial. Ryan's had his hands up on and on one knee already on the ground when Pierce is heard on video ordering his canine Tuco to, quote, hit. Ryan's is then heard screaming. Ryan's testified in July that he has had multiple surgeries and has undergone physical therapy and still has no feeling between his shin and his ankle. He testified the episode contributed to a split from his wife and that he lost his job at Union Pacific because of the leg injuries. Ryan's has filed a federal civil lawsuit against Salt Lake City. Zeus Hamoda scored 28 points off the bench to help lead Utah State over Westminster 106-68 in the Spectrum last night. Hamoda added 4 steals for the Aggies, who are now 9-0. Stephen Ashworth scored 17 points and added 5 assists. R.J. Idlerock shot 6 for 10, including 5 for 9 from beyond the arc to finish with 17 points. Aggies have the weekend off, but they host Weber State Monday night in the Spectrum. Logan struggled on offense and at the free throw line this afternoon as the Dixie Flyers beat the Grizzlies 65-53 at the Coach Walker Basketball Classic. We'll have the third and final Logan game at that Classic tomorrow late morning around 11:50 in the noon hour right here on KVNU. News time is 4:37.
In the beginning of time, in a land far away, hid a material in the earth so versatile that once discovered could give way to a century of innovation. From primitive weapons to railroads to buildings that scrape the skies.
What is it? Steel. And without it, our world would look much different. Nothing is stronger or more versatile than steel. And if you want a building that'll stand the test of time, call Northern Steel Buildings at 435-677-7300 or visit northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy, patchy fog after midnight, low 5 to 10 above, partly sunny in the morning, then clearing, patchy fog through the day, haze in the afternoon, mid-20s for the high, and pretty much the same sort of forecast for Sunday as well, mid-20s. And lows Saturday night, Sunday morning, 0 to 5 above. It's been to 22. Right now it's 18 degrees at KVNU. Napa Auto Parts has everything you need for the cold and snow of winter. Save up to $16 on a pair of Rain-X wiper blades or take the $10 instant rebate on a set of Napa Exact Fit wiper blades. Also, get 50 pounds of ice melt, $10 a bag at your 5 locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts stores. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Branch Office Administrator Brittany Chambers bringing you the Daily Financial Market Report on behalf of Financial Advisor Darrell Arnell and Edward Jones. Major indexes finished lower for the third consecutive day as investors digested this week's central bank announcements. Both the ECB and the Fed reaffirmed the message that rates will go higher for longer until inflation falls back closer to their targets. While technology stocks led the weekly losses, they held up better today, helped by solid corporate earnings. Shares of Adobe rose almost 4% after the company reported better than expected earnings, highlighting positive demand for software despite economic uncertainties. Oil declined 2.5% to $74, while 10-year Treasury yields were slightly higher at 3.48%. Today, U.S. equities closed lower. The Dow closed down 282 points, or 0.85%, at 32,920. The NASDAQ closed down 105 points, or 0.97%, at 10,705. The S&P closed down 43 points, or 0.0111, at 3,852. In stocks of local interest, Home Depot was down $4.26 to $323.34. Lowe's was down $1.88 to $206.14. Nucor was down 50 cents to $133.60. Pepsi was up 9 cents to $180.34. Thermo Fisher is down $17.35 to $536.44. Walmart was down $2.61 to $142.75. And Northrop Grumman was up 26 cents, up $1.38 to $529.87. This has been today's financial market report, brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and financial advisor Daryl Arnell, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice. If you would like additional information, please contact an Edward Jones branch office in Providence, Logan, or Smithfield. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
If you're near retirement or thinking about retiring, you probably have questions. How do you make your savings last? How much should you take out and when? You're ready for retirement, but are your finances? Your Edward Jones financial advisor can help you build a strategy to help your finances keep up with your long-term needs. You've done what it takes to get there. Now it's time to make the most of retirement. Call one of the 7 Edward Jones branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There is a gift that goes for everyone at Cache Honda Yamaha. Take home a side-by-side, an ATV, a motorcycle. Get in early for their very limited supply of youth Honda CRF dirt bikes, from the CRF 50 to the CRF 250. Save $500 to $900 on Yamaha e-bikes. The perfect gift that goes might just be a Honda snowblower or a Honda generator. Helmets, goggles, gloves, hats, box and fly riding gear, and casual wear are popular gifts. They really do have the gifts that go at Cache Honda Yamaha at the Light in Hyde Park.
Happy holidays from Birch Creek Golf Course. For your golfer this Christmas, I invite you to visit birchcreekgolf.com. Birch Creek's online store offers punch passes that are on sale at the spring sale price, as well as driving range passes and discounted golf lessons from our PGA teaching staff. So for your golfer this Christmas, I invite you to visit birchcreekgolf.com and enjoy Birch Creek's virtual online store. And happy holidays from your friends at Birch Creek.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield here in the studio with us. Was nice enough to lend us a chunk of his afternoon on a Friday, nonetheless, to talk about an audit that literally just came off the, I don't think we say this with audits, off the presses, but we shouldn't say that. This audit was completed and the executive summary put together just today, finalized and submitted through the processes as required by county code. And as with all audits, what happens with this is basically now up to the independent department heads that see the audit, the county council, and more, similar to that first audit a couple of years ago in the recorder's office, showing that siphoning of the recorder's budget was hampering the recorder's ability to do the job of the office. And now today, taking a look at a Cache County asset audit. And this, like that recorder's audit that was the first one we talked about, Jess, it's not, this audit doesn't say, this person stole money or there's corruption in the offices or someone needs to be fired. What it says is, look, everyone's doing a good job, but here are some things we found that would make things a lot more efficient. And the one that really stands out to me, because I work in my day job in the nerd world, and this is a really, really common thing that is only revealed through internal audits, even at private businesses. This is a button in software. So it's a database. And there's when a transfer of assets process is laid out in county code, and so there's a process for how it has to be taken care of. And at a certain point, there is a response from department heads in which they need to click approve, and then the asset transfer from one department to another or something like that is at that point approved and finalized. And what your audit found was that button doesn't do anything.
Nothing.
And so
people think it's doing something. They click on mass approval because somebody has 170 right now changes pending approval. So they just keep clicking this button thinking that, and it, every time they do it, I did it.
Like, I'm done.
And they don't, so that's just one of the systems. There's 5 systems. They don't speak to each other. So of the 5 systems, this one has its own issues, and specifically it's the mass approval doesn't work.
So the transfer never actually happens?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just sitting there. So it could sit there, and there's no push. There's no mechanism for people. It's funny, though. I've got to say, before we get into this, I was thinking of the movie UHF, where they're like, oh, we're going to investigate this person's glove box. And they look in, road maps. You get what you look for. But
Sure.
This is one of those things where you have to kind of nerd out and say, well, what are you looking for? And this is exactly what we're looking for, is how can we make things better? How can we save money for the county? And how can we make everybody's life a little easier, including the public who may seek inquiries about some of these items? And
sure.
So one of the things that we did is we verified that all the assets did exist, because we have to. So that was extremely time consuming for.
I'll bet. So to literally go out and say, here is what the county owns. And
you have to go VIN by VIN by VIN.
Wow.
And we've got so many. If you go online, you can actually take a look at all of the different assets that are there. I don't know, it's like 80 pages of assets.
Wow.
And we've put that online so that people can see it. But there's no automatic notifications. And so doing one task doesn't mean that another task would automatically be done, doesn't mean that the clerk auditor's office would be made aware of anything that another office had done.
I see.
So it was all these redundancies, and we found that the finance department didn't trust the list that IT had created, so they were keeping their own heritage list.
Oh, really?
And
asset list.
Yeah, and it was becoming outdated because they didn't know all of the things that were taking place. And then the clerk auditor's office holds all the titles, and then HR holds the insurance, and we're all doing different things.
Repeating the same processes too. It sounds like, right?
And then Roads has their own system, and so they're tracking it through these other systems, but then also trying to track it through a system that's more used commonly in roads departments, and that doesn't.
Oh, wow.
I've never even seen that before, and so these all this kind of goes together to say the county had a communication gap, and we need to make sure that we close the gap on the communication. Otherwise, we risk losing some of these assets. We need to define better what we mean when we talk about assets. We think we know, but it says in a couple different places. You're supposed to track things between 500 and 5,000, but then in another place it says here's what the standard amount is. Anything over $50 you want to track, and so.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, we.
So there might be some confusion there.
Yeah, so if you're a department head or an elected official, nobody right now is really sure what's. I mean, maybe there are some people, but for the most part, the training, we need to make sure that we have better training. We need to make sure that we standardize our policies, our code, and then we also need to implement this and roll it out in a way that we don't have 5 systems out there and people are still saying, well, your system's not good, therefore I'm going to keep the old one alive. No, we have to be able to say, no, this is something that will work for everybody. And so, again, 5 systems. That's one of the
interesting.
Big findings.
That stood out to me from the audit. The county is expending monies on multiple software to track the varying aspects of county assets. And throughout, read through the rest of that paragraph, basically what it's saying is it possible this could be done with one? Or is it possible that the 5 different software systems that are being used to track assets in different departments are not sharing data with each other, so no one really knows what the county owns? Or, something may have left the asset collection years ago, but it's still in finance's database. But the IT crew or your office through titling knows that it's gone and been sold or something like that. And so...
well, I can give my own example, and it isn't even from roads. This happened is all of a sudden I started to get these notifications that I needed to claim these assets for my office. And what had happened is somebody had taken some old list that they found and uploaded it into one of the systems, and all of a sudden, and then I'm having to go through and defend why we don't have these assets that haven't been in the office for
long gone.
Multiple years. And I'm like, this was somebody else's computer that hasn't worked here in years. And they're like, well, where is it? I'm like, I don't.
It was 17 years ago.
Yeah, and so those types of things happen when there's miscommunication and gaps. And again, we're not trying to say you're at fault here. That's the opposite of what an audit should. Well, that's the opposite of what an audit that's not seeking some kind of intent from the beginning. Sometimes there's allegations of fraud, corruption, and you should be looking for it to say if it exists. Sure. But in these cases, we're just trying to say we need to verify that these things exist, the assets, that nobody's being fraudulent to the county. And then second, how can we make the process better? And so all of these things are just focused on, hey, let's all work together in the future. Here's the gaps. Let's get together and fix them. Every business, most private businesses do this regularly, internal audits. And
sure.
So
it's
that's
a part of good governance, I think.
So that's what we're trying to get to in the county. And for the past 2 years, I've dedicated a significant amount of resources to getting us to that point. We've had lawyers come in, we've had certified fraud examiners, and we've had CPAs all doing different types of audits. It's so difficult because you want to audit everything, but you forget how vast the county is and how big just something like the sheriff's office that we want to get to, how big that is as an entity.
Well, and also how easily things can slip through the cracks. There was a lot of that in the audit as I read through it today. Like an agreement to park fire department equipment in a certain parking lot owned by UDOT. That agreement still exists. It might actually be costing the taxpayers money in some way or form, but there's actually no evidence that it's still any longer being used to store fire department equipment. In fact, it looks like it isn't. So the audit recommends, following up on things like that, like, hey, should we go ahead and tell UDOT we need to end this agreement because we're no longer using that parking lot to park our equipment? Things like that, you can understand how over the years they can easily slip through the cracks because that's really no one's sole responsibility to follow up on those things. This interested me. Some of the recommendations here. One, I'm really curious. So an issue was found with so you looked into roads on this a bit as well, and there was an issue found with the Porcupine Canyon Road. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, and that's for more. That's one of the recommendations of things that we want more review on. There was confusion about
a deeper
that.
Dive.
Yeah, so anything that we identified there's some confusion here. It needs to be examined more, either by us or by the department.
Okay.
And so there's some confusion right now about Porcupine Canyon Road issues, and we recommended that is a separate issue, a separate audit.
That is, and also some findings that I'm sure municipalities would be excited to hear might be up for review soon. You found some inconsistent fee schedules for municipalities in the audit. And I'm not sure what this means, but also an issue, and this is a great example of what an audit can reveal that is so useful. You found an issue in the way all this is recorded in internal county documents in which references to weeds and vegetation were being used in different ways that was basically leading to a lot of confusion, which could have budgetary ramifications even. And that literally comes down to language being used in county documents.
Yeah, it's like all
That's
things.
That's fascinating.
It's like all things code and policy related. If somebody's not dedicating their time to managing them and updating them, it it leads to communication gaps. That's one of the communication gaps. But we also have, with those interlocal agreements, there's liabilities involved with that for repair and maintenance, and that the roads has to address because we have all these depreciating assets, and are we gaining the compensation that we put into them? And so that's one of the things. We know we have gaps there because we're charging inconsistent amounts.
Sure.
And so if we're charging inconsistent amounts, we're probably not making the revenue as a county that we should be. That's what it tells me. Or the municipalities are, some might be paying too much. And so that should be an audit of its own. But I don't want to get too much into that because it was a high-level skim of, hey, there seems to be some inconsistencies here. Further review is necessary. And so, but we did find the big thing is, hey, you're expending money on multiple software systems. It's not communicating. Most of the people are unhappy with the way that it's working. Half of the people don't even go into the systems anymore to try and manage them because they know that they're not, the systems aren't being effective. But
which any business owner will tell you is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Right? When the systems aren't effective, the employees start doing it differently themselves.
Exactly. And some of the systems, because IT has its own system that they've kind of rolled out, we do think that no matter what happens, IT could use its own system for IT management because they're the ones managing that. But for all the other systems, we just need to get on board and we need to standardize the processes.
Consolidate, and that's amazing. Before we wrap up here, Jess, I just wanted to give you a chance to mention this because this was also in the news statewide. Ryan Cowley actually mentioned it, state elections director. So there was a recent recognition for the clerk's office outside of these audits, which I'm recognizing you for, and I hope these continue. But the Center for Election Excellence actually spotlighted the work of the clerk's office here in Cache County, the last election, but also the again on the cheap construction of this election center. Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
or is it not yet announced for sure?
I don't think it's been.
I know it's out there because Ryan was tweeting about it 2 days ago. But
oh, was he really?
Yeah.
We've been selected for to be inducted into the Center of Excellence for Elections. So, how much better can you get? I just want to say how proud I am of the staff for getting us there. It's really one of those things where they put you through the test and they ask you a ton of questions. They interview you. And we were selected I think there's only like 25. There's not a lot in the entire country that have been selected as a Center of Election Excellence. So to get that award just reflects on the amazing work that the clerk's auditor, I can't even say my own office.
It's been a rough week.
No wonder they're kicking me out. No, I just want to say thank you because it reflects on the amazing work that the clerk auditor's office has been doing and the staff, and to be among the top in the nation, that's quite an honor.
Definitely something that I like seeing, especially when it comes to elections these days. Jess Bradfield, Cache County Clerk and Auditor, appreciate taking an hour out of your Friday afternoon for us when I'm sure you had much more fun things to be doing. But this is so useful. And listeners, I hope that you'll go download these audits and read them. They'll teach you a lot about county government. I've learned a lot reading them. But they'll also show you how easy it would be to streamline some processes and save taxpayers a lot of money, save department heads and county employees a lot of time. And all of this with just minor changes to processes the audits have revealed might be a huge improvement. 7 different audits you can download over the last 2 years conducted by the Clerk and Auditor's Office, and you can download them at cachecounty.org/clerk. And Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield, appreciate taking some time for us. Won't be the last time we speak before March.
I hope not. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for coming in, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Please stay tuned. The Movie Show with Andy Morgan is next, right after this.
Merry Christmas! from our family to yours.
December is the most wonderful buy of the year at Murdoch. Unwrap the best deals on a new Murdoch Hyundai.
But you have to hurry.
Get the gift of 0% for 3 years, plus $500 in holiday bonus cash on Kona, Tucson, or Santa Fe. And every new Hyundai comes with America's best warranty, a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty, and owner's assurance.
When you walk through our doors,
you feel like family.
At Murdoch Hyundai in Logan, Linden, Murray, and online at MurdochHyundai.com.
Call 866-628-3065 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 1/4/23.